Welcome to our deep dive into the happiest man on Earth. Now I know what you're thinking. A Holocaust memoir titled The Happiest Man on Earth.
Right.
But trust me, Eddie Jaku's story is anything but predictable.
It really is. It's such a fascinating exploration of resilience.
Yeah.
Like, how much can humans actually handle?
Mhm.
Eddie doesn't just survive these unimaginable horrors. He thrives.
Right.
And it's not about ignoring the pain either. It's about actively choosing happiness.
Okay, so let's start unpacking this. Eddie's story begins in 1920s Leipzig. Germany was such a cultural hub at the time, and Eddie, even though he was Jewish, considered himself German first. Yeah, he writes about this really idyllic childhood, filled with family traditions, a love for learning, and even a dachshund named Lulu.
Oh, yeah. I love that detail about Lulu. It's not just a cute anecdote. It really speaks to Eddie's ability to find joy in small things. And that becomes so crucial for his survival later on.
Absolutely. His father was a Polish immigrant, but a staunch patriot. And he instilled in Eddie a really strong work ethic and a belief in the power of education.
It's interesting. It wasn't just about getting a good job back then. It was
Yeah.
about like sharpening your mind, cultivating that resourcefulness. So you're ready for any challenge life throws at you.
Yeah. But then 1938 arrives, and with it comes Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass. For those unfamiliar with this was a coordinated attack on Jewish businesses, homes, synagogues across Germany.
Such a turning point, a real shattering of innocence for Eddie. He sees firsthand this violence, the betrayal by friends and neighbors, and just how fragile the society he believed in actually was.
It's hard to fathom that shock. To see your world turn upside down overnight, your sense of safety, belonging, completely shattered. And for Eddie, this is just the beginning. He's arrested and sent to Buchenwald, one of the first and most notorious Nazi concentration camps.
Oh, Buchenwald was horrific. It was designed to dehumanize, break the human spirit. Eddie describes these horrific conditions, the constant threat of violence, the systematic stripping away of individual identity. It's a crucible. And this is where Eddie's resilience starts to take shape.
It does. He witnesses incredible cruelty, but also these remarkable acts of kindness. He tells the story of a dentist who, after being brutally beaten, meticulously plans his own suicide, rather than succumb to the dehumanization of the camp.
Wow.
It's such a chilling example of the despair that gripped so many prisoners.
It's interesting, though, because it's also a testament to the human will to maintain control even in the face of unimaginable suffering.
Right.
It highlights the importance of agency, choosing how to respond.
Yeah. And for Eddie, that agency manifests in his resourcefulness. Remember his father's emphasis on education?
Oh, yeah.
Well, those skills come into play when Eddie uses his engineering knowledge
Yeah.
to secure a position as a toolmaker in the camp. I mean,
know.
what?
That's amazing. This small act of pragmatism becomes a lifeline for him.
Absolutely.
It not only saves him from the harshest labor, but it also leads to a brief but joyous reunion with his parents.
Right.
They had been desperately trying to secure his release.
This reunion amidst the darkness of Buchenwald is incredible. It really underscores the power of hope
It does.
and human connection.
Absolutely.
And it fuels Eddie's next daring move, an escape attempt with his father. They work with a smuggler and plan this meticulously. They brave a treacherous border crossing into Belgium, but at the last minute, Eddie's father makes a split-second decision. That changes everything.
Oh, wow.
He helps a fellow escapee, sacrificing his own chance to cross with Eddie.
Oh, my God.
It's incredible selflessness, but it leaves Eddie separated from his father, facing an uncertain future in a foreign land.
Yeah, that separation is a pivotal moment. It forces Eddie to confront the reality of survival, rely on his own wits.
And resourcefulness.
Yes, he's alone, but not entirely without hope.
He does manage to find his way to Brussels, reuniting with his father in this moment of pure joy, but their relief is short-lived. Devastating news arrives.
Oh,
Eddie's mother and sister have been arrested back in Leipzig.
oh God.
And the Gestapo, knowing Eddie's devotion to his family,
Yeah.
uses this to set a trap, attempting to lure him back to Germany. It's heart-wrenching, this dilemma. Does Eddie risk his own life to save his family? But then in a display of incredible courage and selflessness, his mother urges him not to return.
Wow.
She knows it's a trap and chooses to protect her son, even at the cost of her own life.
And it's powerful.
This act of sacrifice shapes Eddie's understanding of love and resilience. He's forced to make an impossible choice, carrying the weight of his decision. While clinging to the hope that he can honor his mother's sacrifice by surviving, he tries to rebuild his life in Belgium. He even secures a teaching position at a university in Ghent, using his engineering credentials.
So resourceful.
But fate has other plans. He's arrested again, this time as an illegal German immigrant.
Oh, the irony. Persecuted in Germany for being Jewish, now facing deportation from Belgium for being German.
It's crazy.
It highlights the absurdity of the systems he's trapped in.
Yes.
The way identity can be both a shield and a target.
He finds himself in a refugee camp, separated from his family, the threat of deportation looming large. And it's this fear, this constant uncertainty, that pushes Eddie to attempt yet another escape. This time from a train, hurtling towards an unknown fate in Poland.
Wow.
And that's where we'll pick up next time, with Eddie's heart-stopping escape from that deportation train.
Okay, I can't wait.
So last time we left Eddie, facing deportation, trapped on a train bound for Poland. Now imagine this. You're on this train, hurtling towards an unknown fate, knowing the horrors that await at the other end. What do you do?
I can't imagine. I mean, most people would probably just succumb to despair.
Right.
But not Eddie.
No.
He takes a deep breath and starts planning. He gathers a few simple tools, recruits some fellow prisoners,
Yeah.
and gets to work.
He actually uses his engineering knowledge to meticulously map out an escape route, identifying weak points in the train's floorboards.
Wow.
Talk about thinking outside the box.
I know. It's just amazing, that resourcefulness again, that determination. We see it over and over again in his story.
We do.
Remember back in Buchenwald, he started that little business, boiling potatoes for fellow prisoners.
Oh, yeah.
Even in the darkest of times. He's finding ways to not only survive,
Yeah.
but to help others.
Right. So under the cover of darkness, Eddie and his fellow escapees start chiseling away at the train floor, inch by painstaking inch.
Oh my gosh. The tension must have been unbearable.
Oh, no.
Every creak of the train, every passing guard could mean discovery.
And death.
Exactly.
And then they make their move. They pry open a section of the floorboards and jump into the darkness.
Into the darkness.
Wow.
Not knowing what awaits them below.
It's a leap of faith.
A desperate gamble for freedom.
And it pays off.
It does.
Against all odds. They evade capture and make their way back to Brussels.
Back to the relative safety of Brussels. He even manages to reunite with his family. But their newfound freedom is fragile. The Nazi grip on Europe is tightening. And soon Eddie, along with his parents and sister, are arrested
Oh, no.
and deported to Auschwitz, the most notorious death camp of them all. That's where Eddie's story takes on an even deeper significance, I think. Auschwitz wasn't just about physical brutality. It was psychological warfare, meant to crush the human spirit.
Right. He describes the arrival at Auschwitz as a descent into hell, the separation from his family, the tattooing of his number, the constant threat of death. It's chilling.
It's one of history's most horrific atrocities.
It really is.
And it's important to understand that Auschwitz was part of the Nazis' final solution, their plan to systematically exterminate the Jewish people.
Right.
The camp was designed for mass murder,
A factory of death.
disguised as a labor camp.
Eddie recounts the dehumanizing conditions. Sleeping 10 to a bunk just to survive the brutal cold, the constant hunger, the ever-present fear of being selected for the gas chambers.
It's hard to even imagine. The
Yeah.
details he shares are just so powerful. He talks about that psychological toll, the way the Nazis just stripped away everything from the prisoners, their sense of self, their dignity, their hope.
Yeah, and then the unthinkable happens. Eddie's parents are selected for the gas chambers.
Oh my God.
A loss that would stay with him forever.
I can't imagine. This is a moment of profound grief, but also a turning point. You know, Eddie vows to survive, not just for himself, but for the memory of his parents.
Right.
He chooses to find meaning in the face of meaninglessness, resist the dehumanization by holding on to his humanity.
Yes. And it's in this darkest of places that Eddie discovers an unexpected source of strength.
But
Human connection. He talks about clinging to his friendship with Kurt, finding solace in small acts of kindness, and discovering a resilience he never knew he possessed.
it's not about ignoring the pain or pretending everything's okay, though, is it?
No.
It's about finding ways to keep going.
To find meaning and purpose
Yeah,
amidst unimaginable suffering.
exactly.
He talks about bartering for extra rations, sharing stories with fellow prisoners,
Yeah.
and even starting a little business boiling potatoes in the camp.
Wow, still that entrepreneur.
I know, it's incredible.
It's not just about survival at this
Yeah,
point, though, right?
yeah.
It's about defiance. Refusing to let the Nazis control his life completely.
Absolutely.
But it also highlights this crucial point. The Nazis weren't just sadists. They were pragmatists.
Right.
They saw the prisoners as commodities, exploiting their skills and labor for profit.
Yeah.
Eddie's skills as a toolmaker, the very skills that initially saved him, become a double-edged sword.
Right.
He's constantly aware that his usefulness is the only thing keeping him alive.
He describes being pulled back from the gas chambers multiple times simply because his name appears on a list of essential workers.
Imagine that.
Imagine
Your life hanging by a thread. Just because you're useful.
It's crazy.
It's chilling. The twisted logic of the Nazi regime.
Right.
Survival was literally a matter of economic value.
Yeah. And then amidst the horrors of Auschwitz, a ray of light, Eddie is reunited with his sister Henny, who had also been deported to the camp.
Oh, wow.
It's a bittersweet reunion, of course. The joy of finding his sister alive is tempered by the harsh reality of their situation. And the knowledge that their parents are gone.
Right, and they have to hide their relationship.
Did you?
To protect each other.
Yeah.
They can't even comfort each other openly.
It's another stark illustration of the dehumanizing effects of the camps. Even basic human connections were dangerous.
Right.
A threat to survival.
A threat to survival.
But Eddie's spirit isn't broken. He continues to find ways to resist, to help others, to cling to hope. He even risks his life to try and save a friend who's suffering from a terrible infection.
Why does he do that?
He sneaks out of the camp to try to find penicillin.
Wow.
But this attempt at mercy backfires tragically. He's betrayed by a fellow prisoner who fears for his own safety.
Oh, gosh.
And Eddie gets shot during the escape.
Oh, no.
This betrayal, it highlights the moral dilemmas
That prisoners face.
Yeah.
Self-preservation often clashed with compassion, leading to just impossible choices.
Right.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, human nature is complex and unpredictable.
Yeah. Eddie barely makes it back to Auschwitz, wounded and betrayed. But instead of receiving medical care, he's sent right back to work.
Wow, talking about resilience.
I know.
Every day was a fight for these people.
A test of his physical and mental limits.
Exactly.
And then, as the war begins to turn against the Nazis, a new horror emerges. The Death March.
Ugh, I hate even saying that phrase.
I know.
With the Russian army advancing on Auschwitz, the Nazis decided to evacuate the camp, forcing tens of thousands of prisoners on a brutal march
Through the snow.
in the dead of winter.
These weren't just marches, they were death sentences.
Exactly.
Prisoners were starved, exhausted, exposed to the elements, often shot by the guards for the slightest infraction.
It was a testament to the Nazis' desperation.
And their cruelty.
Yes, their willingness to inflict suffering until the very end.
Eddie witnesses unimaginable cruelty during these marches. He sees friends and fellow prisoners collapse and die.
From exhaustion.
Exhaustion.
Or just a bullet to the head.
But amidst this horror, Eddie continues to exhibit that resilience, that refusal to give up. He and Kurt, clinging to the hope of freedom, plan another daring escape.
They don't stop.
They don't.
Incredible.
And in a remarkable display of selflessness, Eddie sacrifices his own chance of freedom to ensure that Kurt has a better shot at survival.
Oh, wow. How does he do that?
He helps Kurt hide in the ceiling of an abandoned factory, knowing that if he's caught, he'll face certain death.
It's true friendship.
It's incredible.
The depth of their connection.
The way human connection can inspire acts of incredible courage and self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
Eddie's recaptured and sent on a train. Back to Buchenwald, the first camp he was imprisoned in. And even on this journey, amidst the suffering and death, he encounters an act of profound humanity.
Oh, wow. Tell me about it.
He's asked by a dying young man to deliver a photo to his wife. It's a poignant reminder that even in the face of death, love and connection endure.
It's a small request,
It is.
but it carries so much weight.
It does.
A testament to the power of love.
A flicker of humanity in the midst of unimaginable darkness.
And for Eddie, this request becomes a symbol of hope,
Right.
a reminder that even in the face of death, life goes on.
And love can transcend even the most horrific circumstances.
Yeah.
This promise he makes to deliver the photo becomes a driving force pushing him to keep fighting for survival back in Buchenwald. Facing almost certain death, he volunteers as a toolmaker once again, hoping for a chance, however slim, to survive.
He's so proactive.
He is.
He's not waiting for fate. He's taking control.
Yeah.
And that decision leads him to Sonnenberg, a smaller camp, where he finds a surprising glimmer of hope.
He does. He's reunited with an old friend of his father's, a German man, who, despite the risks, shows Eddie incredible kindness.
Wow, imagine that.
A German risking his own life to help a Jewish prisoner in the heart of the Nazi regime.
It's powerful, that reminder that even within a system of oppression, individual acts of courage and kindness can make a difference.
It reinforces that theme we see throughout Eddie's story, that even in the darkest corners of humanity, glimmers of light can be found.
Right.
This friend ensures that Eddie receives extra food each day, a small act of compassion. That makes a world of difference in his fight for survival. But as the war rages on, Eddie's ordeal is far from over. He's forced on yet another death march, this time with no clear destination, just a desperate attempt by the Nazis to outrun the advancing Allied forces.
The situation is chaotic.
It is.
The Nazis are becoming increasingly desperate and dangerous.
Yeah.
Survival seems more precarious than ever.
But Eddie, ever resourceful, manages to escape during this march. Remember those pickle barrel lids he was scavenging?
Yeah.
Well, they play a crucial role in his escape. He uses them to protect himself as he crawls through a drainage pipe, narrowly avoiding being shot by the SS.
It's another remarkable escape.
It is.
Showcasing his resourcefulness and determination.
He's wounded, exhausted, but finally free from the clutches of the Nazi regime. He stumbles upon a small farmhouse, where he's taken in and cared for by a compassionate woman. But his freedom comes at a cost. He's severely ill with typhus. And given a slim chance of survival, it's at this moment, facing death once again, that Eddie makes a promise to God.
This is a big one, isn't it?
It is.
This promise isn't just about personal survival. It's about finding meaning and purpose in the face of unimaginable suffering.
Right.
It's about choosing to embrace life, to find happiness,
Yeah.
and to dedicate himself to making the world a better place, if he's given the chance.
And that's where we'll pick up next time. With Eddie's recovery and his journey to rebuild his life after the horrors he's endured, we left Eddie clinging to life, ravaged by typhus, having just made this promise to God. And it's amazing he recovered.
It really is. Talk about a will to live.
Right.
This is a man who stared death in the face so many times, seen the worst of humanity, and still chooses to believe in a better future.
He makes his way back to Brussels, the city that once held so much promise for him. But now it just feels haunted by the ghosts of his past.
I bet. I mean, the war might be over, but for Eddie, the trauma, the loss, the scars, they're all still so raw.
Yeah.
He's free from the camps, but the experience has completely changed him.
He describes feeling lost, like a ship without a rudder.
I can understand that.
His family, his community, his entire world, decimated by the Holocaust.
And this feeling of displacement, it was so common for Holocaust survivors, trying to piece your life back together after experiencing such horrors. While the world around you just seems to move on.
It's like no one understands.
Exactly.
He tries to find some solace. In fulfilling that promise he made on the death train, he seeks out the wife of that young man who entrusted him with the photo.
Oh, yeah. That's such a powerful detail.
It is.
It becomes this way for Eddie to honor the memory of this young man.
To connect with another human being who understands the depth of his loss.
Right.
But the encounter is bittersweet. The family, while they're grateful, they can't really grasp the enormity of what Eddie has endured.
Right. It highlights that isolation that many survivors felt.
The difficulty of communicating the unfathomable.
How do you put into words the horrors of Auschwitz?
How do you explain that systematic dehumanization?
The scale of the loss.
It's impossible.
It really is.
But amidst this darkness, a spark of joy, Eddie reunites with Kurt in Brussels.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's a testament to the enduring power of friendship.
Human connection is a lifeline.
They start rebuilding their lives together, sharing an apartment, finding work, and they even offer shelter to 3 young women who are also survivors.
That's amazing, taking in these women. Despite all his own trauma,
It speaks volumes about his character.
he's extending compassion to others, creating a space of healing.
And then love enters the picture. He meets Flor, this woman who sees beyond his pain and recognizes the strength and resilience within him
The power of love to heal.
to offer hope for a future that once seemed impossible. Flor becomes his anchor, helping him navigate the choppy waters of post-war life. They marry, start a family, and eventually they decide to emigrate to Australia,
A fresh start.
seeking a new life free from the ghosts of Europe.
Australia represents this blank canvas
A land of opportunity.
where Eddie can redefine himself.
And build a new identity not solely defined by his past.
Exactly.
And he embraces this opportunity with that signature determination. We've seen it throughout his story. He finds success in various fields, from medical instrument making to running a service station to eventually establishing a real estate agency.
It's not just about financial success, though, right?
No?
It's about proving to himself and to the world that he's not broken.
That he can rebuild and thrive.
Create a life filled with purpose and meaning.
But his story doesn't end there. He feels this deep responsibility to share his experiences, to ensure that the world never forgets the horrors of the Holocaust.
It's so important. This is where his story becomes a call to action.
Right.
He doesn't just want to survive.
Yeah.
He wants to make a difference.
To educate and inspire others.
Use his experience to fight hatred and intolerance.
He becomes this tireless advocate for Holocaust remembrance, speaking at schools, community groups, even military academies, sharing his message of hope and resilience.
Turning pain into purpose.
He's not dwelling on the past. He's actively shaping the future.
Right.
And he plays a crucial role in the establishment of the Sydney Jewish Museum.
A testament to his commitment
To ensuring future generations learn from the past.
It's not just about preserving history. It's about promoting empathy, understanding, critical thinking,
Right.
equipping future generations to recognize and challenge injustice.
Eddie receives countless awards and accolades for his work, including the Order of Australia Medal. But his greatest achievement is his unwavering belief in the goodness of humanity.
That's the heart of his story.
It is.
He's seen the very worst of humanity, but chooses to focus on the good, the acts of kindness and courage that helped him survive.
He chooses to forgive. Not to condone the actions of those who perpetrated the Holocaust, but to release himself from the burden of hatred.
It's incredible, an act of strength and grace.
Eddie Jaku's life embodies the message that happiness isn't something that just happens to us. It's a choice.
We make every day.
A choice to focus on the positive, to find meaning in our experiences, and to use our lives to make the world a better place.
What a powerful message. So what choices are you making? How can you choose happiness in your own life? How can you turn your experiences, even the painful ones, into something positive and meaningful? Eddie Jaku's story shows us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can prevail.